question. What's resiliency training? I did a little bit of
Yeah,
research, just a little bit.
yeah, yeah. No, I appreciate it. Hey, that's awesome. I mean, so what's fascinating to me is if we look at sport and exercise psychology as a field, um, resilience as a research topic really didn't start to emerge until like the early 2000s, like 2007,
Okay.
2008. That's when we start to see, oh, psychological resilience is an important thing. Now, for the longest time, people were looking at mental toughness. Okay, we need to have mentally tough people. Well, that's all good and fine, but it also, when we look at the definition of mental toughness, it doesn't necessarily look at how people respond to stress or adversity. And it's like,
Mm,
hold on, sport is inundated with stress and adversity and challenges. And it's not so much the toughness and the ability to prevent those things from happening. It's also knowing that, hey, things are going to happen. How do we make adjustments and how do we help? So it was around 2009 that the United States Army got really interested in, well, we need to do a better job of helping our soldiers be resilient because we're physically preparing them, we're sending them to war, and not everybody's mentally prepared for some of the things that are going to be going on down there. And not just how do I handle combat, it's also how do I handle being away from family?
hmm
How do I handle squad issues? And are we performing well as a tank crew, for example? And so resiliency training that was developed from the University of Pennsylvania was adopted into the military. And they started looking at, well, how do we actually train somebody's ability to bounce back from stress and adversity? And so basically, resilience training should do three things. One, it'll address personal qualities and characteristics or skills. So, like, what is it that you have that helps you overcome challenging situations? And that would be what level of optimism do you have, and not everything's sunshine and rainbows, but do I, do I see that, hey, I can make purposeful change right now to change my future? Like, that's optimism, right?
hmm
Versus pessimism is almost learned helplessness. Doesn't matter what I do, it's not going to change.
hmm
And how does that help you, get over a particular situation? So that would be like an individual level look at how somebody's resilient. But then we also need to look at social relationships. So I don't care who you are in life, you didn't get there by yourself. And I'm not saying somebody, gave you tons of money and that's what helped you, make it in the business world or something. But no, I mean, if we look at our family members, siblings, community members, teachers, there's so many people that play, that have impacts in people's lives. And that could help open up an idea for a business, or open up an idea that cures a disease, or encourages somebody in a difficult moment. And I think one of the things that a lot of us tend to do is we don't want to operate in a vacuum. So how do we
No.
actually reach out to people and get some feedback, or talk through what we're going through, and not even in a true therapy type setting, but just going to a buddy and saying, man, I'm really going through some difficult stuff. What do you think? And that's why group training is really great, because you have training partners and people to talk to and bounce ideas off of. And it kind of helps you problem solve a little bit, which is really important. But then finally, it's the environmental level. So we look at individual factors. What kind of social relationships do you
Mm,
have? And that includes teacher to student or coach to athlete. And then what environmental resources do we have available? And that's part of my role here at Dartmouth. Is, we do a lot of work. We have a nutritionist, we have a clinical psychologist, we have me in the mental performance world, so the non-clinical mental work. We have sports medicine, strength and conditioning. All of us together are looking at how do we support our athletes. So we are environmental resources. So we're going to put people out there. We're going to stress them out. We're going to put them through the ringer. They have big
hmm
workouts, hard practices, difficult games. But who's behind you, right? To enable you to put yourself out there and take those risks, and really try to pursue excellence, knowing that you have people to rely on to kind of navigate your environment moving forward. And so what I think is lacking in sport for a lot of people when it comes to resilience is, first off, we only look at people and we say it's either something you have or you don't. And
hmm
really, resilience is a team sport. you need people in your life and you need resources. And unfortunately, especially when it comes to youth sport in the United States, we don't necessarily have a lot of infrastructure in place in order to properly help and prepare coaches in a variety of different, and we're doing our best to, people in my field are starting to look into how do we change youth sports for the better? How do we better prepare coaches to handle, difficult situations where an athlete's struggling, or how do we prepare coaches to make better nutritional advice for people? And it's hard because, look, if I'm coaching 8-year-olds, like, why do I need to know all this sports science? But
Mm-hmm.
you are the gatekeeper to whether they're going to love this sport and do it for the rest of their lives, or if they're just going to hate it because they
Mm-hmm.
don't like you. And so what are you doing to, help grow your sport and make it something that's enjoyable, but also delivers the promise of what sport should do, which is, we look at sport to build character, allegedly, but we also look at it to teach life skills and to
Mm-hmm.
help people develop, and get something out of it. And that's going to help them with their lives. So good resilience training is going to look at, all right, not just how do we train individuals to be resilient, but if I go to a gym, for example, and I'm looking at how are we helping jiu-jitsu athletes become more resilient, I'm looking at what are the dynamics in the training group with the training partners, what kind of feedback are coaches or teachers giving to the
Mm.
students,
Oh,
are
wow.
the students actually responding well to that feedback, or is there a disconnect? And then what's the environment like in terms of, if I'm struggling or I had a really rough day at work and this is something that I'm coming to, but maybe I'm just not in it, but I still know I need to get some work in. How do I see approachability? Do I see a nurturing environment? Because let's face it, we want to look at this as like machoism and toughness and stuff, but at the end of the day, if you don't have nurturing to allow you to be that tough guy, you need moments where you have a very supportive gym or teaching or training space that's going to enable you to take some calculated risks. So now you can go to a competition
Mm-hmm.
and try to really be that person, right? And so, yeah, I'll do work with individuals, but I try to look at the whole ecosystem, because if we don't have great relationships and a good environment where there's approachability and everything, you've really, really cut off the ability for people to have resiliency.